GM and Chevy are in serious trouble. Their sales are slowing down, their plants have almost failed, and to be honest, they're hanging on by a thread. This might come as a shock to you, because once you enter dealerships, those trucks and fancy new EVs seem to be the dream that people would want to have. But the reality is far from it. What is exactly causing this? And what are they doing about it? And most of all, what it means to you, because whether you like it or not, this will affect you. And GM is not the only one facing these problems. So what is exactly happening? Well, there are a lot of things, to be honest. Salaries are down, they have internal issues, and they're not making profits like they used to. If they continue like this, they might end up bankrupt. And that time is sooner than you think. According to reports, GM's profit margins are feeling the squeeze from rising commodity prices and labor costs. In simple terms, the cost of producing those slick rides is going up, and that's making it harder for GM to keep their prices competitive and their profits juicy. But you know what they say, every challenge is an opportunity in disguise. And the diverse lineup of vehicles at the Chevy dealership, that's a reflection of the entire industry's need to adapt and evolve. Rising costs, inflation, and changing market demands, these are the monsters GM and their competitors are up against. But that's not all. Their sales figures are going low too, and that's an indicator of something worse to come. But what are these issues exactly? Let's talk about it. Challenges. You see, as inflation continues to wreak havoc on the global economy, the price of raw materials and labor is skyrocketing, and that's putting a serious squeeze on GM's bottom line. Take the High Country, for example. The top-of-the-line truck comes with a jaw-dropping $90,000 price tag. But even with that kind of premium, the company is struggling to keep up with the increasing production costs. And it's not just the high-end models that are feeling the pinch. Even the more affordable options, like the Z71 2500 truck at a cool $63K, are still subject to these rising expenses. It's a tough balancing act, trying to keep their vehicles competitively priced while still maintaining healthy profit margins. And when GM first reported their earnings, the stock price saw a bit of a bump, but as savvy investors started digging into the details, they couldn't help but wonder, can this company really navigate these financial hurdles? I mean, with the Suburban Tahoe ringing in a cool $88,000, it's clear that the luxury market is still alive and well, but at what cost? GM is facing a mountain of unsold trucks sitting in dealer lots, and the company's plan to boost sales through increased advertising spending may not be enough to move the needle. The automaker has increased its advertising budget by $400 million, but this figure is still less than last year's spending. The truth is, GM is facing a Herculean task. They've got to find a way to keep churning out those eye-catching rides while also keeping a tight grip on their bottom line. You know what they say, necessity is the mother of invention. And this is one automotive giant that's not going down without a fight. So what went wrong? Well, in short, they want to go premium and dominate in that segment, because by doing that, they can have such high profit margins that they don't even need to worry about inflation. But first things first, GM has made it crystal clear that they're committed to going all in on EVs. By 2035, they're aiming to have their entire lineup powered by electricity. No more of those old internal combustion engines. But here's the kicker. Their CEO, Mary Barra, has also said that this timeline might not be set in stone. Why, you ask? Well, it all comes down to one thing: customer demand. You see, GM knows that they've got to strike a delicate balance between their electric dreams and keeping their customers happy. That's why they're planning to offer a diverse lineup of both EVs and gas-powered rides for now. They're going to let the people decide what they really want, and then they'll build it. Or at least this is what the media is saying. But when it comes to their EV production targets, GM is aiming high, between 200,000 and 300,000 units by 2024, and they've actually dialed that back from an earlier goal of 400,000. Why, you ask? Simply put, they're prioritizing profitability over pure volume. It's all about their new plan for making it into the big luxury markets. And by 2025, they're hoping to see those EV profit margins in the mid-single-digit range, along with some major improvements in their overall operating margins. But while GM is planning for their electric future, they've also been shelling out billions on stock buybacks. Yep, you heard that right. They're just focusing on keeping their shareholders happy, which has caused some analysts to be worried that this could mean they're not investing enough in EV development. But let's talk about that for a sec. The transition. You might now know, but China is one of the biggest markets for EVs, and GM reported a whopping $104 million loss in the Middle Kingdom. And you want to know why? Because they're facing some serious competition from local players like BYD, who are churning out affordable EV options that are giving GM a run for their money. And it's not just in China, it's here in the US too. It seems like competition is trying to get rid of each other as soon as possible, for good. But it's not just the competition that's got GM sweating, it's their own lineup of EVs too. Take the 2024 Silverado EV, for example. Sure, it's got the classic Chevy look, but with a price tag north of $80,000. It's going to be leaving some potential buyers scratching their heads, and these people have been their loyal customers for ages. And even though GM's boasting a 40% increase in EV deliveries, their electric rides still only make up a meager 3.2% of their total sales. And if that wasn't enough, GM's got to be keeping a close eye on the economy too. I mean, if things start to take a turn for the worse, and consumers get a little more price sensitive, those high-priced trucks and SUVs might not be flying off the lots like they used to. That could lead to some serious tension with their dealers, who are going to be pushing back on those allocations quickly. And already, Mary Barra, the CEO, has acknowledged that the pace of EV adoption has slowed a bit, and that's got her and the team thinking outside the box. And their new plan is actually made up of two sides. Let me break it down for you. The blueprint. You see, GM is going all in on EVs, but that takes time and a lot of money. So instead of jumping in headfirst or being stuck on the old trusty internal combustion engines, they're going to do a bit of both. GM's got plans to keep those popular gas-powered trucks and SUVs, like the Chevy Silverado and Caddy Escalade, in production for another 10 to 12 years. Now, why would they do that, you ask? Simple. Those ICE models are still their bread and butter, raking in the big bucks with their hefty profit margins. By maintaining these ICE production lines, GM's building up a nice little war chest of cash that they can then invest into developing those shiny new electric models, like the Chevy Equinox EV and the GMC Sierra EV. It's a smart move if you ask me. Keep the money rolling in from the gas-powered rides and use that to fuel their electric dreams. But it's not just about the money, folks. GM's also staying flexible by keeping a diverse lineup of both EVs and ICEs. That way, they can adapt to changing market conditions and consumer preferences on the fly. And right now, the EV segment is draining their pile of cash. Look, despite GM's big talk about their commitment to going electric, the cold, hard truth is that they're currently losing money on their EV ventures. I know you want to point fingers at those chairmen, because it's not exactly the glowing success story we were all hoping for. But hey, at least they're being upfront about it, right? Their CFO, Paul Jacobson, has flat out admitted that GM is losing money on their electric vehicles, and that's a pretty big deal. Now, Jacobson did say that GM is aiming to reach variable profit positive status for their EVs by the fourth quarter of 2024. Basically, that means they want the revenue from EV sales to be higher than the direct cost of production. The good thing is that for now, their gas-powered trucks and SUVs are absolutely killing it. I'm talking about Chevy and GM pickup trucks seeing a 3% sales increase year over year. That's the kind of financial boost that's keeping the lights on over at GM HQ. But what happens when your MVP faces difficulties themselves? While GM continues to generate substantial revenue from its ICE vehicles, the overall market for gas guzzlers is facing headwinds. The company has reported that its traditional gas-powered trucks and SUVs remain strong sellers, but the broader automotive market is shifting. Let me dissect it for you. The current market dilemma. The first thing you need to understand here is the amount of pressure. See, GM's still raking in the big bucks from their traditional lineup, with sales of their Chevy and GMC pickups even seeing a nice 3% bump year over year. But here's the catch. The broader automotive market is starting to shift, and those gas guzzlers might not be the cash cows they once were. The thing is, the world's changing, folks. Governments are cracking down on emissions, and if GM doesn't start pumping out more EVs, they could be facing some serious penalties. It's like they're stuck between a rock and a hard place. Keep milking those ICE profits, or go all in on electric and risk losing their shirts. And because GM has been so focused on just getting the profits from their ICEs and planning for their EVs, their reputation has been taking a hit. According to the reliability experts at RepairPal, Chevy, one of GM's flagship brands, is sitting at a meager 3.5 out of 5.0 on the dependability scale. And if that wasn't bad enough, the folks over at Consumer Reports are giving Chevy an even worse score of just 42 out of 100. Now, you might be thinking, but wait, I thought GM were all about the built to last and all of that. Well, my friends, it seems like the reality is a little different. Consumers are starting to get wise to these reliability issues, and it's putting a serious dent in GM's reputation. See, the thing is, when you're trying to convince people to drop their hard-earned cash on a brand new car, especially with a premium price tag, the last thing you want to worry about is whether the ride is going to leave you stranded on the side of the road. And let's be real, if Chevy's got a track record of questionable dependability, plus, what's to say their fancy new EVs won't have the same problem? So, what's the solution? According to them, and almost every manufacturer, these days, they rely on one sneaky marketing tactic and serious software skills. Let me explain. You see, these SUVs and trucks, the ones that are making money, and even the EVs that are draining them, have one thing in common: software that gets you connected to them. I'm talking about proprietary software. These days, GM is packing some serious tech savvy, transforming their vehicles into high-tech fortresses on wheels. And let me tell you, it's not just for show. Nope, they've got a sneaky little plan up their sleeve. And it all comes down to one thing: control. With all this fancy software they're packing into their cars, GM's basically got us all in a chokehold. Need a simple oil change? Well, good luck getting your trusty neighborhood mechanic to handle that. Nope, now it's a mandatory trip down to the authorized GM service center where they can nickel and dime you to death. In those indie shops we all know and love, they're being left out in the cold. Unless they're willing to fork over a small fortune just to access GM's proprietary repair tools and information. It's a classic case of adapt or die. And to be honest, even worse than that, because GM is not the only company doing this, and now they have to pay for every brand in existence. This isn't just about repairs. GM and their big-time automotive buddies are playing a game of 4D chess, funneling us all into their exclusive service networks. Less choice for us, more cash in their pockets, and a major roadblock for any potential competition. Talk about a power move. So what's the end game here? Are we headed for a future where our GM cars are smarter than us, but we're too broke to even drive them? Or is this tech tug-of-war going to spark a revolution in the auto industry? Well, it's a bit of both if you ask me. There are two sides to this: price wars and monopolies. You see, the EV market right now is in a full-on war, and whoever controls everything and builds somewhat of a monopoly is going to win. In simple terms, what we talked about at GM is happening to every big auto manufacturer. And the first ones to understand it first, like Tesla and BYD, are leading the pack. All these legacy automakers are trying to be like Tesla. And as it turns out, their fancy tech and cutting-edge materials are making a whole lot of trouble for their customers and a lot of money for the shareholders. How? Well, let's start with the design. Tesla has packed their rides with all sorts of advanced features, electronics, and materials that are a total nightmare to repair. We're talking about proprietary tech, specialized tools, and repair techniques that leave your average body shop scratching their heads. It's like they're speaking a whole different language. And then there's the parts issue. These things are harder to come by than a Bigfoot sighting. You need a replacement part for your Tesla. Better be ready to wait weeks, if not months. And oh, by the way, it's going to cost you an arm and a leg. Not to mention the labor costs are sky high because technicians need some serious training to handle these complex systems. But it gets even worse, folks. When you've got a Tesla that's seen better days, the insurance companies don't want any trouble with you. It's not worth it for them. Yeah, that's right, they just declared a total loss rather than investing in those pricey repairs. And you know what that means? You, the poor owner, are stuck dealing with the headache of negotiating a payout, finding a replacement, and disposing of the old ride. And if you think that's bad, let me tell you that those insurance payouts might not even be enough to cover a new one. Talk about a gut punch, am I right? And on top of that, You can bet your bottom dollar that your insurance premiums are about to go through the roof because they're going to see you as a high-risk driver. But hey, it's not just Teslas that are causing all this drama. Every EV company out there is facing the same challenges. The whole "make our cars harder to repair" strategy is backfiring in a big way, and it's the customers who are paying the price. So what now? Well, the right to repair law is here, the auto industry's version of a good old-fashioned jailbreak. These laws are all about giving us regular folks and our favorite local mechanics a fighting chance against big dogs like GM. Imagine being able to take your ride to the shop down the street. No more mandatory trips to the dealership. Sounds pretty sweet, right? Well, GM and their pals aren't too happy about it. They're throwing a tantrum, claiming these laws are more dangerous than what they're already doing. You know, the whole safety risks and cybersecurity nightmares routine. But let's be real, folks. When the big guys start crying, you know they're scared of losing their grip on the market. And on top of this, GM's gotten one more trick up their sleeve. And to so many people, this is even worse than the whole repair control thing. So what is it, you ask? Data control. These days, your trusty four-wheeled companion is tracking your every move, from where you drive to how you drive it, and even your private conversations. And according to Mozilla, 92% of car brands give you zero control over all the personal data they're collecting. Talk about a serious invasion of privacy. If they're so worried about cybersecurity nightmares, they should take a look at themselves. And I know some people might still think, what could go wrong? Well, how about identity theft, insurance rate hikes, or even government surveillance? And let's not forget the terrifying prospect of car hackers getting their hands on all that sensitive information. The good news is that the FTC is pressuring automakers to be more transparent. But are they doing enough? What do you think? Let us know in the comments. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.